Hello and welcome back. In the previous lecture, we learned about Azure Firewall overview. And in this lecture, we will be learning about Azure Firewall with the practical demo. That means within this demo, you're going to set up your test network. Within that network, you are going to create a VNet with the three different subnets. One subnet will be dedicated for your firewall. Other two subnets will be dedicated for here two different servers. So these servers are deployed into different subnets. So let's talk about the two different subnets. So the first subnet which we talk about, the jump server subnet, means it's a jump server where you try to log in from internet, and from there you log into your workload. So workload will have a different subnet and jump server will have a different subnet. So these two subnets are part of a single VNet. That means here also firewall also will have a different subnet. These three will be part of single VNet. Now once I have created these two servers, that means as a first step I create the VNet and three subnets, and then I also create two servers, Windows servers, and also I create here a firewall also. So this workload server will not have a public IP. That means it's not have any internet connectivity. But what we do is we change the public DNS. We will change the DNS to a different DNS server which we configure, and also we will associate with the help of routing table with the static route, so that the traffic anything originates from this subnet will be go and hit to your firewall, and from the firewall if the rule matches it will go, but if the rule doesn't match, the default rule is to deny, and that gets the denied traffic as the firewall will show you within your browser as it's not matching. So for this demo, what I'm going to try to do is I will be trying to open here within the server workload a google.com and microsoft.com and other different websites. That's a demo. So let's jump into the Azure portal and try to create this infrastructure. While I was creating, I'll also explain what I'm trying to do here. If you're not clear at this point of time, you can also understand what I'm trying to do. I will try to capture every possible step. At the same time, I will like to go in a fast forward. So let's jump into the demo. Welcome back, and as a first step I need to create a resource group. So I'm going to create a resource group by clicking on add and giving the resource group name as test -wrg within the location called West US, and from there I'll just go to create a new VNet. So for that, once this resource group got created, I can refresh to find out, or just go to your VNet. So from the VNet, click on virtual network and then click on add. So here I'm gonna create a VNet for the address space of here, and I need to select the existing resource group and giving the name and choosing the same location, that's a region, West US, and instead of review and create, I must have to go to the IP address, and then I need to give here a address space. So I'm just choosing as a 16, and this is very important that once you choose this IP subnet or IP range, here the default will be there. That means the name is already given as a default. Make sure that I can say that it could be a bug or it could be a recommended setting, but you must have to follow the exact name. Either you do it on your lab or you do it on your production. As per my testing, it should follow a specific name called Azure Firewall Subnet, and this name must be matching. Otherwise, it will fail when you try to deploy Azure Firewall in the firewall deployment phase, not now. So I would like to give all the time this name, and also I'm going to here associating the specific subnet with the range. So here as a 26 with the one subnet, and click on save. So that actually creates a VNet for me. and the remaining settings are fine. So this specific VNet is for your firewall subnet. So that's a 10.0.1, and review and create, that gets created. So here I'm not choosing anything DDoS or firewall specific settings. I'm simply going for the default. So what I have changed here is just the IP addresses specific I changed with the IP subnet information. Now if I go to the, again go back to my VNet, I need to create another two different subnets. So I'll just go to that VNet and go to subnets. If you see here, I have already 10.0.1.0 subnet. Now it's time for me to give other subnet. One subnet is for my workload computers. So starting with the 2, which I'm trying to give. So this name can be anything. It doesn't matter. Just for only this, it is conditional match. But other things are fine. So in my case, I'm just giving as a workloads SN and 2 /24, and I'm also trying to create one more subnet quickly. You see here it's already created, so I'm just trying to give here as a 3. This is for my jump server, so I need to give here meaningful name for jump-sn, maybe server name, server network, sn as server network, and simply click on OK. That actually create here subnet. So here 2 subnets got created. Right now total we have 3 subnets as we talked. Now I'll just go back to the virtual machines and try to create a virtual machine. So before that, let me go back to the virtual machines here and click on add. So here I need to create a new virtual machine. So click on add, select the right resource group, that is in our case test -fwrg. All the time I'm trying to choose this, and here the machine name I have chosen as a server jump. So one server I'm creating as a jump server, and it's a Windows server, so I am selecting as a Windows. Default settings, but make sure that in the networking you have selected a subnet specific, and the VNet should be a proper, and also subnet is for the jump server, so it's a jump SN. And you make sure that you also have here the public IP. So because it's a jump server, that means from internet we are trying to come to jump server. Once the jump server is accessed, when we reach here jump server, that means this should be within this subnet, and once we have the internet coming within this with the public IP of this public IP jump server.ip, and then what we do is we do MSTSC to another server called workload server, and from here we try to browse. That's what the demo. So as a next step, I'll just go for other default settings. I'm not going to change anything because this demo is completely specific to a firewall, so it's a default. I'll just go advanced and show you what are the options I'm choosing. Tags also, I've not taken anything review. So once I reviewed all these settings, I can simply let me scroll down so that you can see the complete settings and create. So that would actually create a virtual machine. So we created the jump server. Now the next step is to create another server, which is a workload server. So here I would take this time to create a workload server. So it's just taking some time. Yeah, it has just created. Let me go back to the dashboard and create virtual machine and click on add, and this time I'm choosing the same resource group, but the computer name I'm choosing as the different name, that's a server-workload, same region, and again Windows Server or Windows 10 I can choose, but let me go to the server configuration. But make sure that this time I'm not going to choose any of the public IP. Even RDP ports also not enabling. If you see here, RDP port is not enabled, and also here in the disks I'm not doing anything, but in the networking you see here it's more important here. Here the virtual network is the same, but the public IP is not there, no public IP. And if you see the workload subnet is I have taken because this machine belongs to workload. So what I'm trying to do is when I try to browse from internet to this jump server, this is a jump server, so from jump server I'll do the RDP, but from here to this specific server which we are trying to create now, this server doesn't have a public IP. That means from here to here I need to do the MSTSC, and then this is in a different subnet, so this is no public IP, so local private IP I will be using, and then remaining options are quite similar and default. I'm not much changing anything here because this demo is specific to firewall specific. And once this is done, we have now a subnet, which is three subnets which are associated with your firewall or with a single VNet, and then two virtual machines. The next step would be deploying the firewall. So let's submit this completely, this creating this VM. Once this VM is created, I will be creating a firewall. So I'll just go back to dashboard and set here as the firewall. So I get as the firewall and click on add to create a firewall, and it's basic. All I have to do is I have to choose here the resource group, right VNet. So the name I'm just giving here, oops, just a VNet, and the same region I'm choosing here. Now the important point is, instead of you create a new subnet or new VNet, what I'm trying to do is, since I have already existing my machines as well as my VNet, I will be using this method as the use existing. And this is where I've been trying to explain here. When you choose here this option, it says that it must be matching with specific to a VNet name called Azure Firewall Subnet. So make sure that if you don't give in the first VNet when you're trying to create, instead of the default, you should give there as the Azure Firewall Subnet. If you don't give that exact name, you get it here as the error. That's the practically thing. And also, definitely I can't use the existing public IP because my firewall itself will have a dedicated public IP. So all I have to do is I have to create a new public IP by clicking on add new, and this is where I can give some name like Azure public IP firewall, something like that, and it must be a standard and static. So the IP must be static and also it should be standard, and in fact those are by default. So click OK, and that's it. Review and create. That's going to create for you a firewall. This would take post to the review and click on create. It takes at least 5 to 10 minutes time, so make sure that you have selected the right VNet and a public IP, definitely, and then click on create. That's it. It's very basic steps to create the firewall, but next step would be the configuring the firewall settings. So I'll just wait until this to be deployed. So it got deployed now. I've waited for 10 to 15 minutes time to complete this entire step. As a next step, I'll just go to my resource group so that I can show you, what are the resources I have inside that my resource group. So my resource is test-firewall resource group. You see here I have different resources, 2 servers, 1 firewall. Let me sort on a name, maybe that might help you, or the type maybe, like you see here 1 firewall public IP, and also 2 NSGs and 2 VMs and 1 firewall here. So I'll just go to my firewall, or sorry, I need to create here now route table. So I'll just go to the routing. That's where I need to create a route table. So just click on that, create a new route by clicking on adding. So here what happens is you need to choose a right resource group and the location, and post to that you need to add a static route. So I'll just choose my name and other things. I'm just trying to fill the default values like firewall route and other things, and I'm not doing anything much here other than choosing the right location and right resource group and right subscription name. So this would actually takes a minute or so to create for me this route table. Once a route table is created, if I just do a refresh or page refresh, I will be getting here the firewall-route, which is we just created. Click on that, and now it's time for us to create a subnets to be associated. So let's go to the subnets, and associate here and select the VNet which you wanted to associate. In this case, test-firewall and also the subnet. So here I'm going to associate the workloads static route. That's I'm going to do it. So that means the subnet is the workload which I'm associated. So with this static route, what I'm trying to do is from here, from the route, click on give some name, maybe like this is for the workload. So I can give here as the firewall specific default gateway kind of thing. And then suffix would be anything like 0.0.0/0. That means any communication uh, you want to go out from your appliance. That's appliance is nothing but your firewall. So in that case, if it has to go, so the next hop should be your private IP address of your firewall. So if you don't know, just go to the firewall overview. You will see the firewall IP. From here overview, you can check out here the firewall private IP. So take this IP address and give it there in the static. So let me switch back to the other tab which I'm running this wizard for the route table. I'll just give here. So what happens is I'm trying to route any information, that means any kind of communication with the virtual appliance for the hop ID is to my firewall. So any communication, it will route back to my firewall. So that's what I'm trying to do. Click OK. So now the route has been done successfully. Now it's time for appliance to be for the creating the firewall specific application rules. So let's go back to firewall here. So I can go to the resources and then I can click on from there, or I can search for the firewall, or I can pin it. So in my case, I'm just going back to the firewall. So test-fwrg, which is my firewall. So from the rules, I need to create here two type of rules. I don't need to play with anything with the netting. So I don't play here anything. I'm going to create first as the application rule, and then I'm going to create the network rule collection. So let's jump into the application rule. So into the application rule, I wanted to allow maybe Google for this point of time. So I'll just give a name as the allow Google, and then I'll be creating FQDN base. So let me go back. So I'll just this is in a different tab. Let me go back to the rules. Again, application rule collection. I'm sorry for that, but add. So here I would be entering a name called app collection 1, and the rule priority is 200, and the action is I'm trying to do allow for my target FQDNs. So that means I know the exact URL name. So I want to allow, and the IP address here, if you see here, I just fill this allow as the Google, that's a rule name, and the source subnet is this. That means anything from my, if you remember, this subnet is your workload subnet, right? So from here, and then the protocols, I'm going to choose here HTTP and HTTPS, and the FQDN of your www.google.com or whatever the website. So I'll just enter those values here. And similarly, whatever the websites you want to whitelist, you can give it here, because whitelist is allowing action. The action what we are choosing here is the allow. If you're not allow, then you may be blocking a certain website. So let me type here completely google.com and click on add. That might take a minute or so to create your application rule. So once the application rule is created, I need to go for the network rule. So in the network rule, I can again create a specific DNS rule. So in the DNS, like I wanted to route the traffic from my public DNS servers. Instead of you route the from a different DNS service, I wanted my traffic to go from the a specific DNS service. So that's what I'm trying to do. So here I'm just entering the LO DNS, again rule priority 200. So here the IP address information, all that, the name and other things, I have to fill it. So service tags are just the optional, but DNS protocols, I can choose here definitely the UDP protocol because DNS is UDP. In this case 53 I wanted to give here, and the name I just wanted to put it as a static, that's a net-collection01. So I'm choosing the UDP protocol and the IP address here, and the source is from my workload source, that is 10.0.2.0/24, and the destination address is a specific DNS service. You can give here maybe Google DNS server or any of the DNS server which you are trying to use. So in my case I'm just entering a different DNS server which I have here, and that DNS is a public IP DNS, which are the public DNS definitely like 8.8 or 4.4.2 something like that. In this case I'm entering my own DNS server by comma, so that primary and secondary DNS it is taking, and the destination port definitely it's a DNS port is 53, so I give here as the 53. And next step I can simply click on add. That would actually create the network rule also. That means now what we have here is we have already created the application rule to allow Google, and next DNS also we allowed. So these DNS is nowhere configured on your virtual machines. So the virtual machine, especially we are talking about the workload virtual machine. So I need to go to my srv-workload. That's a workload machine which I'm going to test. So on this machine, network called properties. So just the settings and networking, and then the network card. So from there I need to give these DNS servers. So these are the DNS servers configuration I need to enter. So let me go to networking, and then you can choose your NIC card, which is in this case srv-work 883. So simply click on that network card, and once you have chosen the network card, you have the DNS server. So this is where you need to give the DNS. So in my case I have the custom DNS servers, right? So these DNS servers we created and configured under our network rule, right? So I'm just assigning this. So when you apply anything additional custom DNS, it means you need a flash of your IP config along with your DNS. So we needed to restart your virtual machine. So I'm going to restart the virtual machine in the next step. So now it is configuration is saved. I'll just go to the virtual machine called the same virtual machine which is workload. I'll simply restart this virtual machine, and I'll wait a second to restart my virtual machine. So it just got restarted now. And as a next step I need to connect to the virtual machine, and if you see here there's no public IP and there's no public IP, and the IP address is 10.0.2. Series. So I need to just go to the jump server to connect. So I'll just go to the jump server overview and just trying to download the RDP file, so that I just hit to my jump server. From there I just log in, and from there I need to connect to my workload server. So I'll just click on this. So I just logged into this. So I'll just open MSTSC to log into my workload server. So MSTSC and the IP address of my workload, which is 2.4. In this case, I can give my user ID and password for the authentication. Once it is authenticated, I can log in, and also I wanted to disable the enhanced security internet enhanced security, so that I can browse without any additional pop-ups. So I'll just close this server manager, server admin. I'll just go to local server, and I'll just disable this so that I'll not get any additional prompts when I'm trying to browse, because it's a server operating system. And recommendation settings I'll choose because this is the first time I'm opening my IE. So I'll just choose IE11, and I can simply open google.com, and this works without any problem. That's good. Now if I just go to microsoft.com, maybe it doesn't work if I try to go for Microsoft.com, and if you just read it, let me zoom it maybe so that you can read in a better way. Like, it's actually blocked because it found as a deny action. Uh, that's a default action within your firewall. So it got priority wise application rule, otherwise everything getting denied. So it got denied by default, so that's good. So I can maybe give a try for Microsoft to allow. So this time again I'm just editing the same application rule with same subnet, that's the workload subnet, and the protocol same, but target FQDN name is this time Microsoft.com, maybe whatever the website you wanted. So the traffic will route to your firewall, and firewall will send the whether based on the rule matching it will allow or deny. So just updating this firewall rule might take a minute or so. So it got, no, it's not, it's saved, it's still saving. Yeah, it got successfully saved. I can go back to my site here and I can refresh simply. I don't need to reboot even. So it's opening the Microsoft site. Similarly, Google also works without any issue. And what if I try msn.com? So that would definitely blocked because that rule was not matching anywhere. So that's how this works. Similarly, Yahoo or any website you try to open, it doesn't work. I hope this entire lecture or demo will be useful for you on how to create, how to work with your firewall services to secure your network. Thank you for watching this. We'll catch you in the next lecture about specific to firewall specific settings.